We are all at risk at some time or another. Sometimes we put ourselves at risk. Sometimes life does it for us. Freshmen and new students arriving in St. Louis from all over the world, even from Illinois, know that better than most of us right now. Starting over, knowing few, if any, others here, strangers in this strange land. And experiencing the recent graduates taking leave of us just last May. For them, the same fears all over again, and maybe even more difficult this time. Now, amidst some growing fears and uncertainties about their own future, so many young people sense that everything around them is at greater risk. Many of them are still looking for jobs, still looking for places to live. Now add to that your own fears I hear so many young people talking about these days, concerning increasing dangers of climate change, so many more being born into poverty across the world than ever, and the growing disparity between the rich and the poor, the seemingly endless threat these very days of natural disasters, Joplin here, Irene there, and the nightmares of terrorism, and the lack of courage of those who seem to have the most power. Many of you who are young are worried about how to live in a world that seems to be coming apart at the seams. But you who are young are not the only ones who are scared. We who are older, we older folks, we too fear. Fear things like losing our health care, our retirement benefits we worked so hard to accrue. And those of us in our prime earning years fear that we can't earn enough or could lose our jobs at any moment. Too much fear. Too much fear. And it can lead to unnecessary panic. And it can leave us paralyzed. Peter represents this world. Peter represents this world when he cries out fearfully and tells Jesus, "Don't go to Jerusalem. God forbid, Lord. You put yourself in danger to go there. Pull back. Retreat. Play it safe. Live small." Michael Meade, who I find a thought-provoking writer who writes frequently about issues men face, tells an old teaching story that comes from the great African savannas, where life pours forth in the form of teeming, feeding herds. As the herds eat their ways across the plains, lions wait in the tall grasses nearby, anticipating the chance to prey upon these grazing animals. And so in preparation, they send the oldest and the weakest members of the pride away from the rest of the hunting pack. Having lost much of their strength and most of their teeth now, the roar of the old ones is far greater than their ability to bite. And so the old lions go off and they settle in the grasses directly across from where the strong and the hungry lions wait and watch. And as the herd enters the area between the hunting pack and the old lions, the old ones roar mightily. They roar mightily, and at the sound of that roaring, most of the herd panics. And blinded by fear, they turn and flee from the seeming source of danger. And as they rush wildly in the opposite direction, they run right to where the strongest lions wait in the tall grasses. Dinner is served. Run towards the roar. Run towards the roar, the old people used to tell the young ones. When faced with great danger in this world, run towards the roaring. Go where you're afraid to go. When faced with those great dangers, go that way, right towards them, because only there will you begin to find your way through them. In times of great trouble and times of great tragedy, we have a choice. We can either step into life more fully, or we can slip into a diminished life characterized by fear and anxiety. Make no mistake about it, the modern world has begun to roar, and has begun to roar in a mighty way. And fear has become the dominant emotion amongst people of all ages. And a heads up, during time like these, times of great fear, there are many in politics and there are many in religion who would prey upon our rampant fears. They'll prey upon our fears with easy and attractive answers, and by promising us a black and white world. So here comes Peter. Peter fearfully arguing with Jesus. Don't take the risk. Run from the roar, he says. But not for this Jesus. This Jesus chooses instead to enter into his fears, risking his own physical safety even, and his own ego securities. This Jesus runs toward the roaring. Jesus runs towards the roar. Why? And how does he muster the ability to go that way instead of this? What does he think? What occupies the mind of a person who would do it this way, which is so different from most of us? And this gospel, in its conclusion, tells us this is the thinking that motivated the man. Whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. That was apparently the mantra of his days, and it's the mantra he passed on to us that I'm concerned we have yet to come to grips with and make our own. If you wish to save your life, you will lose it. We keep trying to save our lives by being afraid of the fear itself, and we spend so much time, so much of our precious, precious lives running from our fears, saving our lives. And we end up living lives that are so small. And we slowly, slowly slip into a diminished life characterized by fear and anxiety. And in the end, what happens to us is exactly what he knew for himself as well. That if I live my days running from my fears, I will actually forfeit my life. And I will forfeit the fullness of what I could have been. It's true that there will be moments when we are all caught in the teeth of debilitating fear. But please, my friends, let us not let that become our life. Let us not let fear become our life. Because if it does, we will be dead before we ever even began to live. Michael Meade goes on to write about an old African proverb. When death and danger find you, let it find you alive. We must not get caught in the blind fears that grip the herd. When the world roars at us, it is time to go where we're afraid to go. Yes, it will put us at risk. But the real risk in this life is that we will live a life that is so small. If we don't choose to live our lives all the way, as scared as we get, and to develop the gifts we've been given to do it for others' sake amidst all the uncertainties of our day. We have not been created out of love and brought into being because of love, and had Jesus sacrifice everything for us so that we can be free from fear and have so many of those people sitting alongside of us this very morning, this very hour, in this place, who also sacrificed so much to be brought here this morning, to be brought here to St. Louis, to become strangers in this strange land, to live small lives. And so, if the roaring comes from here, no matter how loud it gets, don't run that away. Run this away. Run towards the roaring.